everybody says recruitment's so expensive. Yes, it's expensive.
That, hey, I'm the one who's giving money, so there is nothing for me to sell.
Give clear indication of what the job is. Give clear indication of what the benefits are.
When would you say we should hire from Australia, and when can somebody hire offshore? Hey everybody, welcome back to my podcast. And today we have amazing Mel. Mel, why don't you talk about a little bit about yourself, where you come from, so that everybody knows who they are listening to.
Sure. So originally a very small business owner back in the day, in the creative space, before jumping into recruitment and holding some national type roles. Before then delving more into HR and then coming full circle back to recruitment again and being a GM for several large agencies within Sydney. And
That's fantastic. And what kind of business are you focusing on right now? Are you building your own
yeah,
business? Where you're serving? Yeah, okay, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so earlier this year, I've actually launched my own recruitment agency. So have sort of stepped away from that corporate lifestyle that I had, and now launched my own Zemek Recruitment. So based in Newcastle, still service my clients in Sydney. Recruitment is something that doesn't need to be there anymore. COVID-19 taught us that you don't have to be on the ground in the same city, the same state as what we once thought we had to be. So I'm servicing clients right up and down the East Coast.
That's fantastic. What made you open your own company?
I've been in the industry for a long, long time, showing my age, but well over 16, 17 years now. And I had worked for, a couple of really big agencies and decided that it was time to do it for myself. There's certain things when you work in different companies that you think, "Oh, I'd love to have been able to do that," or, "I would have loved to have been able to change that," or, there's certain paths that different CEOs and different, owners go down and they, might not necessarily really 100% align to yourself. And then after sort of taking, a short break at the end of last year, I was like,
Yeah.
"No, I think now's the time, and it's time to build something for my own."
That's fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about like overall recruitment process? Like, how is it in Australia? Like, what are the steps that we usually go through that probably North Americans don't go through? And maybe we can talk about a little bit of the struggles that the industry is
Sure.
facing right now.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I guess recruitment here in Australia, there's two camps. There's permanent recruitment and there's labor hire recruitment. I've always had an element of labor hire recruitment within any of the businesses that I've worked in. And that is, your short-term, employees that, help with that workflow, with the peaks and troughs of business and that kind of thing. So that's usually a very, very quick turnaround. We get a job on in the morning, and it's usually needs to be filled by that afternoon, ready for the person to start the next day. Your permanent recruitment is a lot longer time frame. We've got clients that, we might be working with and planning out a project for, 3 to 6 months before the actual need to start the process, because that project's coming on at the end of the year. Or it could be, that we're planning for a particular project or a particular um, piece of work to come on, but that process is quite long. So there's sort of two, I guess, streams of revenue within recruitment in Australia. From my experience, I've managed businesses in New Zealand and the UK as well. It's in Australia's recruitment agencies, we take all of the risk with the labour hire type candidates. In the UK, it's done under umbrella companies. The payrolling function is outsourced and that kind of thing. And then in New Zealand is very, very similar to Australia. There's not a lot of differences between, I guess, the methodology, and that is a big thing that the methodology in recruitment, it doesn't change. It doesn't matter what industry you are. You still have to do the checks and balances. You still do your sourcing. You still, tapping people on the shoulder from that headhunting perspective. Um, the methodology of recruitment, it doesn't change no matter the job, no matter the industry. It's just the intricacies that each little industry might have, whether it's a qualification, and that's why we get subject matter experts within particular fields, because especially within, you'd see that very much in IT and in the medical and allied health fields and that sort of thing, where they're so honed into what that skill set is that their candidates need, that they really do sort of focus on that, and then they're able to give their clients that best level of service.
Mm. So I talked with a lot of founders here in Newcastle and,
Mhm.
and Sydney as well. One of the things that they always say that it's so hard to find good people. Is that true?
100%. 100%. It is really hard, and the market is particularly tough at the moment. The people that it's not a blanket, ruling, but, a lot of the candidates that are applying, on job boards and that kind of thing, they're not necessarily the right match for the job. So it's really recruiters
Hmm.
these days need to build their own networks and their own um, candidate pools where they might be just talking to a candidate for 2-3 years before an opportunity comes up that they go, Joe, you're the one for this role. So it's really about that passive market. The active market is, nowhere near as high. In your lower skilled, sort of blue collar roles, yes, absolutely. We posted an ad the other day for drivers, for instance, and within 48 hours had 140 applications. Now, not
Yeah.
all of those met the criteria that we needed, but there's other jobs that we put out. I had a consultant working on an accountant role, and there was 4 applications. So, it's a real disparity in, what we're getting from a candidate's response, especially on those job boards, which is why it's so important that recruiters these days, we are talking to that passive market. So if employers are going out and they're just putting a job ad out, it's so hard for them to find them, right? Because one, they're so focused on what their primary source of role is in the business. This is the big thing in recruitment. Everybody says recruitment's so expensive. Yes, it's expensive, but do you take your car to an accountant? No. Do you have your bookkeeper? Do your books? Do you take them to an electrician? No, you don't. The recruitment, you outsource. We can go through, a number of resumes and that sort of thing within you know, 45 minutes that it might take a business owner, 2, 3, 4 hours to sit there and open and read through them and all that kind of thing. We're trained to do that. We're trained to, look and go,
Mm, mm,
meets, no, does not meet. Okay, that's in that pile. Um, so an employer or a business owner is so focused on what their business is and, they take that 2 to 3 hours away from what they're supposed to be doing in their business to build and grow their business to look at people coming in. And then 9 times out of 10, what happens is that we all call our candidates and our candidates can't answer because they're either at work or they're, doing something. So then they call us back later. And so as a business owner, if you're having 3 and 4 trickled phone calls through the next sort of 48 hours, and every time that phone then calls you back and you're not in front of your computer or you're off doing, whatever that duty is that is your primary role within the business, it takes time away, right? So then what is that cost
mm,
of
mm,
you doing that? And once you add all of that up, and then, you've got to add in the interview time and then the reference checking time, which is the same thing. Reference checks don't always come back to you straight away. They don't answer. You kind of go, well, actually, it might be a $15,000 fee for me to hire that person through a recruiter, but what has it cost me during this time that I'm not actually working
right.
on my business?
Mm, mm. And now, can you tell me what are the things that a small business, right? Not
Mhm,
large business, a small to
mhm.
medium sized business. So small to medium sized businesses. What are the top 2 things that they can do so that they can attract really good people?
Yeah, so, when if you are putting a job ad out, you're marketing your business. So you've got to think of it as, this is my first impression. You're trying to attract those people into there. So, give clear indication of what the job is. Give a clear indication of what the benefits are that you're offering that might make somebody jump, because that's ultimately what you wanna do. You want to entice someone from their current employer to then come and work with you. So what are you going to offer them? What's gonna be what's your differential to what they're currently doing? Because, do they wanna stay where they're stable at the moment? Or is it, we're seeing a lot in the market where it's 5 weeks annual leave, or it's, um mental health days or wellness days. It's, the parental care that's being extended from 12 to 18 weeks now. There's things like that that people will absolutely, they will look at. Flexibility is, you offering flexibility when their current employer has now said, everybody back to the office, mandatory 5 days a week. That might not, it just might not work for people anymore. COVID's taught us that. There's things that, I guess candidates have now decided that what they can and can't live without, and what they're willing to accept and not accept. So those small things around flexibility, and those sorts of things are the big deciding factors. So, as an employer, market your business. That's what we do as recruiters. We're out there, we're marketing your business and saying, this is a great business because of X, Y, Z. Show the benefits of coming, and working for you.
I completely agree with you. So even so, I run a agency, marketing
Mhm.
agency. We have about like 45 people working with us full time, and I always believe it. Like when you're trying to find somebody good, it's not that you're just paying somebody and that's why they should work with you. No, if somebody's that good, they will also look at your background and they want
100%.
to find out, is the company well established? Can they always keep paying me? Is there a room for growth? And also, if the person is actually that good, which means that person is, has demand in market, that person might also look into, who am I going to work for, right?
Absolutely.
Who am I reporting directly? Who am I working with? Like, who are the other people that I'm working with? So I completely agree with you. I think a lot of business owners sometimes, maybe because they are the employer, they tend to think that, hey,
Yeah,
I'm the one who's giving money, so there
absolutely.
is nothing for me to sell.
But,
But to be honest with you, I think, yeah, go ahead.
no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What I was going to say is candidates are super savvy these days, right? Whereas,
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
5, 6 years ago, where as recruiters, we were like, let's check out the social media and see what they're doing on socials. Does it really line
yeah.
up, kind of thing? Candidates are now doing that to businesses. They're checking out their Instagram, they're checking out their LinkedIn, they're looking at who are the decision makers in that business, and they're checking out their LinkedIn personal profiles, and then what content are they sharing? Is the business a good corporate citizen? That's a really important thing for,
Right.
some candidates.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree with you. So after COVID, things have changed, right?
Absolutely.
Um, uh, People who are only working with, hey, this person is living in the same town. I should be working with him. That has definitely changed. Now it doesn't matter anymore. Now, even if we're offshoring, and that's also okay. What are your thoughts on when should a company hire somebody like who should just come to the office or within the location close to the office, and when should somebody even be okay with hiring somebody from outside Australia, let that be Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, or even Philippines? Wh- when
Yeah.
would you say we should hire from Australia, and when can somebody hire offshore?
Look, it's a really good question, and it does ultimately comes down to what is the job? What is that function that that person is doing?
Mm,
If that function
right.
is a customer facing role, 100%. They've got to be there. They've got to be, accessible to their clients and that kind of thing. If it's something that's, what I'm seeing a lot of offshoring is in those back office type roles. So, the accounts roles,
Mm,
payroll, even some of the EA stuff where, you've got virtual assistants and that sort of thing. Those types of roles, they don't need to be there. Sure, there needs to be really good
mm,
communication. There needs to be great technology where, we can do videos and we can do video calls and whether it's a Teams message or a Slack message or, all of those sort of great technology aspects that we've now got that have really come ahead leaps and bounds post COVID. Um, it really does come down to that, the role function, and then obviously the costs associated, the cost of offshoring some of those back office admin roles, is significantly less than what it is, unfortunately, to hire somebody here in Australia. Um, but in saying that, to be able to offshore some of your roles, your training manuals have to be really, really well done. Your onboarding has to be exceptional.
Mm.
From a HR perspective, you really need to make sure that whoever you're offshoring to, one, feels 100% part of that business and that they're not just a person that's just stuck on the other side of the world, sitting in a dark black office that, they don't have any interaction. But also that, your vision, your mission, what you're trying to achieve as part of the business is well communicated to them, because if they don't believe your story, they're never going to work, because they don't have that hands-on touch and feel, being in the same environment, being able to collaborate with you in an office environment. So if they're offshore, you've got to make sure you've got all of those processes in place prior to even thinking about doing that as an option.
Yeah, yeah. Couldn't agree more. Um, in terms of overall, following government rules and stuff like that, what are the things that somebody must do or a small company must do to make sure that they don't get into trouble in future? What are the documents or what are the processes that they must follow to make sure they're like absolutely aligned with whatever the government wants?
You mean here in Australia as an employee?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
here in
yeah. So
Australia, yes,
I
yes.
for Australian employees, you need to, make sure that you're meeting the national employment standards. So there's, you have your fair work statement. You've got to meet those national employment standards. They're given. There's other things like the casual conversion now. There's certain industries that, you can only be casual for 6 months before you must be offered, a permanent role. There's other industries that are 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
You have to meet the
Mm-hmm.
award. You cannot pay below award. You must meet the minimum standards of national awards and that kind of thing. And that comes back to, why would somebody work for you? A lot of employers are now offering above award rates, because that's how they're going to entice someone. But yeah, from an I guess a compliance piece, within Australia, national employment standards. Make sure you're meeting all of those requirements. You're meeting the requirements of the awards. It's not just in the hourly pay. It's are you meeting the shift allowances? Are you meeting the overtime rules and all of that kind of thing? And each industry is so um, different, and that's why there's a multitude of national awards. And then there's businesses big businesses that have got the EDAs and that kind of thing, that they've been able to negotiate different rulings. But essentially, make sure that you're following those national awards, fair work standards, and the national employment standards.
Got it. Coming back to solving founders problem, right?
Mhm.
With your company, what kind of problems are you trying to solve for founders?
Yeah, so I guess our offerings that we do within Zemek is not only just recruitment. So we do recruitment. As I said, there's two streams. So we do casual labor hire, and then we do permanent recruitment. We also do unbundled recruitment. So where, as I was talking earlier, around the time that it takes a business owner or a founder to do that sort of recruitment process can be quite long. So we will essentially unbundle the entire recruitment process, and you can pick and choose which part of the process that you want us to do for, and then we only charge you for that piece. So, it might be just, can you write the ad, because I can't write an ad? Can you screen the candidates, and can you phone screen them, and then let me know and present me those details. So we offer that. And then on the other side of that, we offer HR consulting. So HR consulting, again, we break down into a number of different ways. It might be ad hoc, where it's just you know, a query and that kind of thing. It could be a HR project. So you might want to go through and redo all of your policies and procedures and make sure that they're they're all compliant. It could be where we are a retained service and um, I've got a couple of clients where, I do their complete employee onboarding. So we've done all the recruitment process for them. Then we do the issuing of the contracts. We do their onboarding process. We make sure that they've signed off on all their policies and procedures, and they just pay a monthly fee. Very similar, I would imagine, to a marketing company where you're on a retained um, fee and you do all of their marketing for them, on a set sort of rate. It's very similar for what we do in that, and that we just look after that employee cycle. Um, there's a other company that I work with just through their performance management. So I go in once a month. We look at the stats of how the employees are performing, and whether they're meeting where they want to be. What goals can we set in place? What development can we do with them? Um, Occasionally, it does result in performance management discussions and that kind of thing. But more, I would say 99% of the time, we're looking at how do we grow the business or how do we grow that individual. It's very people centric in how do we grow that
Mm,
individual to meet the business objective. So, they may want to get the particular person from, to 2x to 10x. And what do we need to do? Well, we need to give them some development. There needs to be some career planning, that kind of thing, and in turn, that then achieves the business objectives.
got it. Got it. One last question, and then we can wrap up the podcast. What keeps you going? Like, it's a little personal question, but I always like asking this question to founders. Like, there must be a reason, that helps you keep going and keep getting better, and being passionate about what you do. But
Yeah.
at the same time, there must be something that keeps you going. What keeps you going?
Yeah, I guess I'm a mum. I have 3 grown daughters now. They're all adults. But I mean, ultimately, I was unfortunately made a widow, quite young. And so that drive to show my girls that they can have a career, they can be a mum. And don't get me wrong, it's very difficult at times. There's definitely some ups and downs. But yeah, I'm super competitive as well, so I hate losing. But that drive, really comes from my girls. So yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing this story. Like, it's definitely help us. Like, I'm asking you this question because at the end of the day, there must be a reason why we keep getting better and better. Why we want to keep getting better and better. There is one thing to just, hey, I gotta do a job. I'm gonna do a job. I gotta run a
Mhm.
business. I'm gonna run a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think I personally do not think that that's how you can achieve greatness. That's how you can thrive. Even the reason I put together this podcast, this specific podcast, is because I really want to know how founders in Australia they thrive and not just survive, right?
Yeah.
Most of the businesses all around the world, they kind of survive day to day, year after year. They just keep surviving, keep
Mhm.
surviving. They have a business going on, but it's not thriving, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
My motto in life is that you have to keep trying so that you can thrive and not just survive, bro. So, Mel, with that, thank you so much for being on this podcast. I'm sure this podcast will definitely help a lot of founders. So if anybody wants to get in touch with Mel, I'll definitely link her LinkedIn, down below. So yeah, keep watching this podcast, and if you are watching this on YouTube, subscribe and hit that like button. If you're listening to this podcast on any other platform, do follow us. With that, Mel, is there anything else that you want to share, and then we can end the podcast?
No, no, absolutely not. But just thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, Mel. Thank you so much, and see you on the next podcast.